Grab your cup of coffee. Sit down for a story. Let's all go exploring. Making it after 40. Making it after 40. Making it after 40.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Making It After 40 podcast. I am your host, Lisa Rodriguez. I'm an actor and writer who is still trying to make it after the age of 40. On this show, we explore what it means to be an artist trying to make it as a middle-aged person. I hope you all are doing well and having a nice, slow start to the new year. I'm doing pretty good. Trying to find my routine. I find myself incredibly exhausted. I'm trying to, give myself some grace and allow myself to be a little slow and do a little less, but while still meeting all my responsibilities. So today on the show, we are featuring actress, writer, puppeteer, producer, general, badass performer, Amie Enriquez. Amie has a one-woman show called Lightweight about her time recovering from anorexia and addiction in a rehab facility. The show originally ran at Second City Hollywood and has been reprised in Los Angeles many times. And this past year, she actually was able to take it to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is an incredible festival with people from all over showcasing theater and incredible shows. And big news, Amie is having another run of the show in LA. And actually, that's why I wanted to have her on the podcast, because I saw that it was coming up and I wanted to make sure that we got her featured before this run, which starts January 12th through the 15th at the Broadwater Theater. I'll have a link in the show notes if you want to go buy tickets. And then if you're on the East Coast, she's also going to have a run of the show in New York from February 17th until March 5th. So this was my first time getting to chat with Amie and actually meeting her. And it was such a delight, of course. Her story is incredibly inspiring, and she has been through so much, as you'll hear in this interview. So yeah, with that, I think you should just tune in and listen to Amie's story and then go check out her show if you're in Los Angeles. Okay, so today, I have Amie Enriquez on the podcast. Hi, Amie.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you. Amie is an actress, an improviser, a writer, producer, basically. So I learned about Amie, again, so many times through the Second City. I've brought so many guests on from Second City Hollywood. And actually, her husband has been on the show, Ithamar. And I tried to get you on the show back in August, but you were doing the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is so awesome.
Yes. And I thought, I could probably still record the podcast from Scotland and it will be easy breezy, but it was like a 24/7 job and I was slowly losing my mind. So I'm glad we waited.
Yeah. No, this is great. And we'll definitely get into the show because I have so many questions about your one-woman show and the process and all that, how you got to the point of putting together the show. But you're about to have another run here in LA and then in New York. So yeah. I saw that and was like, oh, I got to reach out to her now because this would be really good timing.
I know. I was like, Lisa's a great marketer. She's on it.
I do try to pay attention to I'll reach out to guests that I want to have on. And then if I happen to see that they have something coming up, then I kind of push a little bit more. So I'm
so happy you thought of that. It's so hard to promote and market and get people to see shows in Los Angeles. So this is
it really is. It really is. Well, I'm really grateful because I haven't been able to see your show. I remember when it was when it first came out at Second City Hollywood, because I was finishing up my grad review there and I saw the artwork and it was very compelling and I was like, oh, I should check that out. But like you just said, getting out to see shows in LA, it's so challenging.
It really is. And I opened it in September of 2019 and then did a second run in February of 2020. I think it was like February 20th, 2020.
Oh my gosh.
Then that was that was it. That was the death of theater as we knew it for about 2 years.
Yeah. Well, why don't you share with us a little bit about your journey, how you found your creative spirit, your soul, your creative journey. I'd love to hear how you ended up to where you're at now.
Sure. Yeah. Gosh. I'll give you the abbreviated version, although I'm going to start with being a kid.
Yeah,
but
no,
I
that's
swear
fine.
this won't take. I just I'm like a middle child of 3 girls. Classic middle child symptoms of just like kind of reclusive, like staying in my room and like writing poems and writing plays and writing books, and I just just my little vignettes. Like I didn't want really people to play with me because I was like, no, this is how, it's got to be this way. And like directing and, so I just think I always had that longing to perform and entertain but also please people in me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I was like a tween print model, and I did a bunch of like kid stuff, acting and modeling as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City for college. And I was there during 9/11. I was already battling some eating disorders at the time. And on 9/11, all of my eating disordered behavior just went full blown anorexia. And that kind of put a halt on my creative career or any projection the trajectory that I was on. 'Cause it just, it robbed me.
It took over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it completely took over, which we'll get to because that's what the show is about. And, so that went on pause for quite some time. And I was in treatment, in and out for a long time. So all of my 20s were kind of just frozen. Obviously, it was a decade of a lot of growth, but really painful growth, and to the point that the disease was so debilitating, I couldn't do anything but try each day to survive. And then when I was maybe 29, I think I moved to Los Angeles. Maybe I was 30. No, I was 29. I moved to Los Angeles. I was in a pretty bad marriage at the time, actually. Not to Ithamar.
No.
Just want to clarify that right off the bat. This is a perfect marriage. It was just, it was a terrible relationship that I got into when I was recovering. And so it wasn't very healthy. And we had moved out here to Los Angeles for me, really. And it was very unhealthy and very, unhappy. And I started taking classes at Second City with my friend who I worked with at a restaurant at the time, my friend Maddie Norwood. We were like, we're funny together. We should take an improv class. And we tried to sign up at the Groundlings, but the website was down for the day. So we were like being impatient, and we just signed up at Second City. And I mean, there's no accidents, because like that, like I never found myself funny. I never thought I was good in front of, people or impressions, or, well, I'm still not good at impressions, but just or being quick-witted, and I just did not. I was like, oh God, what am I doing? And my goodness, I found a voice, not necessarily like comedic and, rip-roaring laughter kind of voice, but a voice. Like it was so lovely to find like-minded individuals and talk to people who listened and to listen when other people talk. And that was such the gift of improv, right? Is like, it's about gift giving and listening and not reacting and, thinking on your feet. And just the bond that I created just with that first level class was just, they're still my friends today. And, it was just, and I got this level of confidence and joy that my partner did not like. And it was, I think it was quite threatening to him. And we did divorce and, which set me free even more. And I just practically lived at Second City and that is where I met Ithamar and, just immersed myself in watching shows. I did eventually go to the Groundlings and do the same thing there.
Yeah.
And,
It's so funny, like so many of the guests that I've had on that went through Second City, whether it's Second City Hollywood or Second City Chicago, they all will say that they just really found a home and a community and a safe place at Second City. But
Yes.
I think in particular the Second City Hollywood, I find that a lot of people said they really just felt like it was what they needed, where they felt safe to grow and explore their voice and find their voice and find other people who are willing to support it.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think, and I'm sure because you've spoken to so many Second City people on your podcast that they also feel like it's not very competitive. I feel like
Mm-mm.
Second City
Yeah.
doesn't pit you against each other as
Yeah.
students or fight for slots on the stage. And I think other schools do.
Mm-hmm.
Not to call it the Groundlings. I love, love, love the Groundlings, but it does feel more competitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's what I've heard that time and time again. I haven't taken with them yet, but
yeah,
I've
they're
heard that it's
great.
just very competitive.
Completely different. Yeah. So I'm really glad I got to experience Second City first. I think if I started with the Groundlings, I would have been intimidated and probably dropped out.
Yeah.
But because I'm not a competitive person.
Yeah.
But I felt that Second City just really wanted you to succeed. They just really wanted you to, find your own voice. You didn't have to fit a certain mold, just, learn the rules, break the rules. And they really, really, I remember at graduation, Josh Funk just being like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want time on this stage, like just ask, like we will
Yeah.
get. And I was like, what? That's amazing. You don't have to like audition and,
Yeah.
and that's what I love. They
Yeah.
just really nurture you and they want you to get on that stage and, just try.
Yeah.
So I just, that is what's just made me really come into myself as a performer, as a person. It brought me to Ithamar, which was like the biggest gift. And
Yeah.
still the best friends in my life are my Second City, like day
Yeah.
ones, so
I
it's awesome.
remember Josh gave this a similar speech at our graduation, and he talked about how, like, I think the big story is that Key and Peele, when they were trying to get their deal, they came to him and said, like, hey, can we put a sketch show on at the Second City stage? And that's how they were able to kind of
Oh
get
my
it seen
gosh.
by other people and then get their show, which is like really neat. And it's such a shame that
Amazing.
it's gone now.
I know. I just
Yeah.
like what I would give to walk up those massive flight of stairs and just, like it's like the stairway to heaven. I'm just like, oh gosh, I'm almost there. But just
Yeah.
I miss it. I miss like the smell of the halls and just just hearing all the
Yeah.
chaos coming from the classroom doors.
Yeah.
I miss that structure. I miss the community so much. It's been really hard post-pandemic life to we're still in it, but just now that theater's back, it's really hard to like find our place again. It's just like
Yeah. And I know
sad.
some of the teams have kind of come back together or new teams are forming, and they're finding spots. Like I think the West Side, what is it, West Side Improv, or the
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
they have a spot, and then of course there's oh my gosh, it's escaping my mind. Wolf Pack.
Oh,
What is it called?
oh, the Pack, the
The
Pack
Pack.
Theater. Yeah, the Pack. Yes.
I couldn't hear. Those
I love the Wolf
wolves.
Pack.
The
Wolves
Pack.
doing improv.
Oh my god, my brain. That's so wonderful that Second City was able to be a part of your story and like help you
Yeah,
find that voice. And so
yeah.
from there, is that kind of what gave you the courage to go ahead and write your one woman show?
The one woman show. So that was kind of in my mind for a while. So
Mm-hmm.
I put all of the creative stuff on hold for a bit when I got in 2017. I went corporate. I took a job at DreamWorks
Okay.
in their the casting coordination department,
Oh, okay.
and I hit this I don't know, just this wall of just like, I need to know how much money I'm making each week. I need to know what my schedule is every day. Like I was getting really tired physically and mentally of the hustle. And
Mm-hmm.
so I, within a week, realized that was the wrong decision. I'm not meant to sit at a desk. And I, for about a year and a half, talked myself into it because like, it's okay. It's okay. And I was
Yeah.
miserable. However, story of my life, I met some of my best friends there. I have a lot of best friends. You're like, Amie,
Yeah.
are you sure? I swear, everyone is my best friend. But I like, this is pretty woo woo, but I used to see a psychic pretty regularly, and
Yeah.
I was talking to her. It was more like therapy, and she's like, this isn't the place for you. You're not going to be here that long, but the people that you are working with, like, don't burn any bridges. They are going to be a part of your life for a really long time. And
Yeah.
sure enough, not in a career way, but in just a personal friendship way, it's just they've been they're still my DreamWorks crew, even though a lot of them have left too. But so it was worth it for that sake. That payoff was the friendships. And I learned a lot about the other side of the industry. This is primarily voiceover casting, but I learned so much.
I saw that on your resume. I was looking at, or on your IMDb, and I was like, oh, she was involved with casting. Oh, that's interesting. And so I was curious about what that's about. You know what's so funny is, so a little bit about my background. I was a property manager for commercial buildings for 15 years. And the last big high rise that I was at was Glendale Plaza, and the DreamWorks animation team was there on the top floors from like 2014 through I think they moved out now.
They did, but I was there. I was on the 24th floor.
Shut up.
Yeah. Because they've moved out now. They're all on the campus now. But
so Anthony Fabrizio was my main contact.
Yes.
And I always used to think, like, they have so much fun, because I'd be doing my corporate job, my property management job, and be like, they look like they're having so much fun, and they're having Nerf gun wars, and I want to go up there and have Nerf gun wars with them.
We did have Nerf gun wars, and that was like, I'm such a I'm like, I'm not doing that. And then I did do a Nerf gun war, and I was like, this was the most fun I've ever had. It was so much fun, but we needed it. Oh my goodness! But the DreamWorks culture has so much fun, except for the casting department, because we're usually at our desks crying, going like, stop making all that noise, because everyone's having so much fun, and they have like Thirsty Thursdays, or it's like there's a bar that comes in, and like, music and arts and crafts, and we would sometimes just sit at our desks in tears, like, I would really like to participate in that, but if I step away from my desk for 5 minutes, the world will crumble. It was a high pressure job, but we would often be like, I'm just gonna step outside for a minute, and we would all know, like, you're going to go cry, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of projects. It was, we just had too many shows, and it was great though. It really was. I learned so much. I didn't know what I was doing getting into it. I had never worked a desk job before. So it was like sink or swim. And also everyone is very nice, I will say, like super nice. But it wasn't for me. The problem really wasn't DreamWorks or the job. It was me. I just didn't. I thought I could get home by 6 o'clock each evening and just have dinner and then work on my creative stuff. And it just wasn't like that at all.
Yeah.
It was not. Yeah, the hours were long. It was so energy consuming that I would get home, eat dinner, and be like, I just can't. I don't want to do anything right now.
Yeah.
And so I started to get like in a pretty bad funk and pretty depressed. And one thing that they did offer, though, which was really lovely, was like screenwriting classes or meditation classes or all these really cool like extracurricular things for free.
Yeah.
And so one day this woman, she was like a kind of like a script doctor or writing coach. And she did a whole seminar, and it kind of inspired me like to start writing again. But then I was like, I don't know what I want to write. And so I was having this existential crisis of, I'm working this corporate job. I'm miserable. I know that I don't want children. At the Mar, and I had already had that discussion long ago.
Yeah.
We're childless by choice. So I just started to panic about, what legacy will I leave?
Yeah.
What impact am I making on this world if it's not in the form of, raising a good kid or doing something meaningful with my career that's making a difference in the world, or, what life is this? Just, working 10-hour days and still not being able to make my bills, and still, and just being stressed all the time and losing sleep. And I just was like, what's my legacy? Like, what footprint will I leave when I'm gone? And I think about that a lot. Hopefully I live another like 50 years, but I just like, I've been thinking about like, that since I was a kid. I'm just like, oh God, what am I doing with my life? So, but this time it was getting really, like, it was really getting to me. So I quit. I put in my like notice. I stayed for like an extra month because I just felt like there was too much to finish up, too many projects I didn't want to leave hanging, and I didn't want to leave my coworkers with all that extra work. So I stuck around for a while, and the next day after my final day, I went to acupuncture. I swear this is all paying off. I went to an acupuncture appointment to like as a treat because I would go monthly to decompress. And it was I was like, I just quit my job and my last day was yesterday and I feel so free. And this woman who I love and still trust, I've been going to her for 7 years. She put a needle in my back, as she usually did, and she tapped it a little too far and it punctured my lung. Yeah. And I was in the hospital for a week after that. So it was this wild, like my lung collapsed and it was mentally, like I was like, oh my gosh.
I didn't even know that could happen. I didn't know that was like a possibility with acupuncture.
It is. It's rare, but it can puncture an organ if not done correctly. And so I went from this, like, I had like 12 hours of like, I'm free. And then my, like all the air just left my lungs. And I was in the hospital for a week. So I had a lot of time to really be like, what the hell? What is the universe telling me? Like, I still don't know the answer, to be honest. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe that really was just a freak accident. But what it did do was give me so much anxiety that I finally started seeing somebody and got medicated properly. Which I am not big on medication, but I certainly am for mental health. But I had been not really acknowledging that I needed to go back on antidepressants or anxiety meds. And this was a pretty traumatic thing for me. So that was definitely the blessing in disguise as I got on antidepressants again and I have anti-anxiety meds again. And so it kind of helped chemically like straighten my brain out slightly. And the depression began to lift, the anxiety began to lift. And I saw that Lauren Weedman was teaching a solo class, like solo playwriting class. And I had been eyeing it for a while, but I didn't have the time to do it because of DreamWorks. And so now I was like, and I did get a very small, but fitting claim from the insurance company from the accident. So I was like, I'm going to take some of this money. I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to take this class. And I had been toying with the idea of a one-woman show, but I had no idea what it would be or how I would create this. And Carla Kukowski, I started working with her at first. She's awesome. And she had temporarily moved to Portland to teach or help open a theater there. So I was like, and so she kind of helped me get, some ideas generating. And she kind of introduced me to this woman named Lauren Weedman's work. And I kind of just like had this talent crush on Lauren. And so when I saw she was teaching a class, now I had some money. Now I was on meds and I was like, I can do this. So I took the class and that is where Lightweight was born. That class, Lauren is such an incredible teacher. She's so talented. She's so funny. She's on Hacks and Abbott Elementary right now. Like she's just done so much in theater and on TV, but wow, she cracks me up so much. I think I'm one of the few people who can follow her train of thought because she's a really interesting and quirky, and she'll be the first to admit it. Like, I'll ask her one question and she'll send me a video message in response that's 9 minutes long. And it's just like, a train of thought, and we have such a wonderful relationship. So we did this class, and in the end it results in a student show where each student does 10 minutes of their story. And that's what you work on the whole class. And so I did 3 scenes. I wrote 3 3-minute scenes about my time in treatment for anorexia. And I always knew I wanted it to be a comedy, which
Yeah.
is weird because there's nothing funny about like addiction and anorexia and 9/11. But looking back on it, and I'm so far not removed from it now, but it was my 20s and now I'm 40 and I've not had any eating disordered behaviors or relapses since the age of 30. So I felt like I was in a very healthy and stable place
Yeah.
to write, to really write this without it triggering me or being just too intense and having to walk away from it. So Lauren was a really, really great teacher because she knew it was fun. She finds the funny in the dark, really morbid stuff as well. So she just let me go for it, and it worked. I just said, I hope that people laugh. I also hope that they cry, and I hope that they walk away just feeling something they haven't felt before, or learning something they've never acknowledged before about addiction and our relationship with food and our bodies, and how much words can, just affect you for the rest of your life. One thing you hear as a child, and how people think that they're helping and how backwards it really is. And so I was able to manage it in 10 minutes. I did it, and I didn't think I could, but afterwards I didn't invite anyone to the student show except Ithamar. And afterwards, everyone else's guests came up to me and started opening up about their own stories, or even like, oh, my girlfriend in college was bulimic and I really never understood it, but I feel like I get it a little bit now. And I thought, like, I achieved that in 10 minutes. What could I do with an hour? So that's where it started. And that was April of 2019. And we went out for drinks afterwards. And I said to Lauren, would you want to direct the full length version of this? And she's like, well, I don't direct, but I will direct yours. And I was like, yeah, thank you. So she did. And then Second City gave me the time because I had Zoe Rubino, who's now in New York City, but she was my tech person. And it just, I did it, and I'm still doing it.
That's awesome. Gosh, what an incredible story. I mean, well, one thing I'll say when you're talking about your accident, kind of like all these things culminated into this moment where you finally got to make this piece of art and start your legacy. One of my aunts, when I was going through my divorce, because I'm also divorced, and remarried.
Yeah. It's a fun club to be in.
Yeah. And but my Aunt Tina, when I was going through my first divorce, and I had my first child, and he was 2.5, 3 when we were going through that. It was a really hard decision. And she said to me, she's like, sometimes, and I share this with you because you're a little woo-woo. She's like, sometimes your angels or the universe gives you a little push when you're not listening.
Ooh.
Maybe with, your angels kind of giving you this little push. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Wow.
And so
it's just so true. It's so true.
It's like, you're not listening to the signs. It's like, okay, well, now we're going to pull the rug out from under you, and you're really going to have to pay attention.
Exactly. It's like, because I kept saying, with the corporate job, like, oh, I can't breathe. I just need to come up for air for a minute. I just need a minute to catch my breath. And I did use that language all the time. And then what happens?
Oh, no.
My lung collapsed. I was like, whoa, we got to be careful what we say.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
The universe was like, okay, I'll show you what it's like to not breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing you said that was really interesting is just the words that we use, the language that we use with each other and then with children. And, I'm sure part of that story is whatever you went through when you were growing up, and, it triggered something in you. And, it's, as a parent, it's like something that I try to be really careful of, because I think, growing up in the 90s, there's so much diet culture, and it's so hard to change your thinking about that. Even now, like, I still try to think about how I phrase something, or like when I notice that I'm, changing my eating habits or whatever. We get through the holidays and you've been binging in the holidays and then you have to stop. And
Yeah.
I'm really like aware of what my child is picking up on. So my kid is a trans boy. So and he only came out in the last like year and a half, 2 years.
Oh.
So before that, he was being raised as a girl, and so there's still some of that where like he'll sometimes want to wear my swimsuits or whatever, and I was like, oh, I was gonna wear my one piece, and he's like, well, I want to wear your one piece, and he's like, why don't you want to wear the bikini? I'm like, well, how do I say this?
Yeah.
It's really hard to like
It's
be aware of what you're like, because I don't want to put my own issues with my body image, and I haven't had eating disorders, so I can't speak to that, but I can speak to like how I feel about my body and my awareness of my body, and
right.
too much thought put into the shape of my body.
Yes, it's just ingrained in us from,
Yeah.
our own parents' upbringing and, being raised in the 90s and just in our
Yeah.
society where bodies of all shapes and sizes are, even though there's obviously just certainly progress, it's just not. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like a $1 trillion industry with weight loss and supplements and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And it's challenging to be like, it's just normal thinking, or is this disordered thinking? Because,
Yeah.
I don't obsess over my body, but I definitely have days where, because I was full blown obsessed for a very long time, but now, and
Mhm.
I have days now where I'm like, oh, these jeans, I had to lay down to button them. And that's the first. And okay. Or
Yeah.
like, wow, I have been eating so much sugar that I'm sweating at night. Like something, my body is not happy about what I've
Mm.
been doing. And, so I'm just to become more aware and more conscious, but without it becoming like you know, I have to cut this out, or I have to fit in this, or I have, yeah, my
Yeah.
mom wasn't careful with that language at all. And, it definitely, even though she had 3 daughters, I'm the one that I think I just am so sensitive. I'm so sensitive. So
Yeah.
I took all of that on. And I've found that with my show, in the beginning, I thought, oh, this is more targeted. I think that people who appreciate the message of the show and the journey in the show the most will be women, probably young women. And I
Mhm.
was so wrong. That was just what I assumed. And
Right.
I have now performed the show. I mean, I did 26 performances in Edinburgh, in Scotland over the
Mhm.
summer, which was interesting because it was an international audience who don't know me
Yeah.
personally, have no loyalty to me. They're not my friends. They're
Yeah.
not like, yeah, Amie. They were just strangers who bought a ticket and they want a good time. And so I was terrified. But what I found, whether the show's in LA, New York City, Scotland, so many men, more men, it still surprises me, which saddens me that I'm not very aware of how much
Yeah.
body dysmorphia and diet culture affects men and the trans
Yeah.
community because of
Mhm.
the I don't want to speak for the trans community, but this from the conversations I've had after my show, there's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure put on themselves to now fit in that, the body that
Yeah.
they're now, that their gender is,
Yeah.
for the gender that they've been identifying with, the
I'm
pressure.
seeing that.
Yeah. And
Mhm. And my kid and I talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, just it's got to be really, really, it's so hard for to live in a body that doesn't feel comfortable and doesn't feel like your own, because that was certainly
Yeah.
me for a very, very long time, not in a gender way, but just feeling like I could crawl out of my skin. This just doesn't feel like me. And
Yeah.
and so I'm like, oh, of course, like a lot of members of the LGBTQIA plus community can really relate, way more men, than I expected, and a lot of elderly people, which I did not
Oh.
expect that at all either. But I think people in their 60s and 70s didn't have a platform to discuss this growing up either. It really wasn't talked
Yeah.
about in your house in, the 60s or 70s. So
Yeah.
I've been finding like, oh gosh, like, because I always thought, oh, I would love to do this as a college tour, but I'm like, oh man, no, I just think this message just hits everybody of all ages and all, gender identities, and which saddens me, but that it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, so many people are struggling, but it also makes me feel that, motivated to keep going and to keep doing the show, because it also gives everyone permission to laugh too at just like how ridiculous we can get in our heads, and how unhelpful our parents can be sometimes when they think they're helping. And
Yeah.
and just it's a journey, but I'm happy that it's found a diverse audience.
Yeah, and it's such a powerful message. It's so needed. And I think the thing that I'm finding, as I interview so many guests, is that when you really step in and kind of share from such an honest and vulnerable place, it really ends up resonating with people in such a deep and impactful way. Whereas if it had just been like a little surface type of thing, it probably wouldn't have that same impact, because I think you're just saying what a lot of people were too scared to say,
Yeah.
And then I think we humans, we crave that connection. And when you open yourselves up like that, it really just calls people in. And it's really special. And I'm planning to come see your show in LA this time
Yay,
around.
thank
So
you.
I'm very excited.
Thank you. Those are
Yeah.
really the types of shows I'm very much drawn to as well. It is a really special thing when a performer, you feel like you're watching someone and they are connecting with you, and whether you've gone through it yourself or not, it's just so,
Mhm.
So I'm happy to be able to do that too. And that's why I like an intimate venue, because I want to be able to kind of like reach out and touch the audience if I need to. Although I never talk to the audience. I saw a lot of solo shows at the Fringe, and I
Yeah.
admired all the solo performers who like broke that fourth wall and talked to their audience, because it
Uh-huh.
feels so comfortable and connected. But mine is not, it's not storytelling. It's a full play where I'm performing a bunch
Yeah.
of characters, and, so I don't do that, but I need that audience close to me, I can't
Yeah.
imagine doing like an
Yeah.
arena. I mean, please, if it was presented, I'd be like, absolutely. But I just get me
Yeah.
to the bowl. But I love like a nice, intimate, like 50 seat, it's so
Yeah.
lovely to just connect with people. And and it's fun. And Lauren, my director, had told me, because at first the version of this play was very surface. It was more about jokes, like I want to make it funny. I want to make
Mhm.
it funny. And thinking like, oh, my mom, bless her heart, drives me crazy sometimes, though. She wants to see everything. And so I knew she was going to come to this show. And I was
Mhm.
writing it in a way that I knew wouldn't offend her. A lot of the stuff I wrote, is my family going to call me out on that? Or will that offend my mom? Or,
Oh, yeah.
and a lot of the parts of this journey, through binge eating disorder and bulimia, and then anorexia, and then recovery and relapse, and all of it, a lot of parts were kept very close to me, and I didn't share it with my family because I didn't want
Yeah.
them to worry so much. And, thoughts of suicide, and, sexual harassment. And Lauren would not allow it. She's like, write the show that you want to see, not
Yeah.
just, do not think about your audience. If you write for your audience, you're going to have a terrible show. Just, you have to write. You have to get so uncomfortable. And I think that my very first show, I was like blushing the whole time. Like, I did a great performance, I think, but I think my cheeks were so red because I just
Yeah.
felt naked, because I knew every person in the theater, because it was all Second City friends and supporters. And
Yeah.
my mom and my stepdad and my aunt came, and I just felt like I was just completely naked, just standing on that stage. And I was just like drenched in sweat and so just terrified. But it got easier, and it
Yeah.
keeps getting easier, because, and I love doing it for strangers too, because I'm like, they don't know me.
Yeah.
But in Scotland, it was really interesting, because afterwards the audience would come up to me and go, was that a true story? And I was like, why would I make
Yeah.
that up? I mean, there's photos of me.
Yes,
There's
of
a
course.
montage of like pictures of my life. And I was like, yes,
Yeah.
that's a true story. So I had to open it instead with close the show each night when I would, go do my curtain call. I'd say, that was a true story. That's based on my real life and da 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 da. Because people thought I just fabricated it, which I'm like, what monster would write a story about 9/11 and being anorexic if it wasn't true? That would be terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Lauren was great in making sure that she's like, there's no right or wrong. It's your story. If people get offended or if people are shook or whatever, like that's on them. She's like, this is your journey.
Yeah.
So, no one has a right to judge you, especially you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, oh gosh. So
I think she's spot on right there.
I think so too.
Yeah. So then with this show and with your career, what are you kind of looking forward to now? Like you have this incredible show, you're going to tour the hell out of it as long as people will let you. Do you have any other things that you want to work on or any other like, I don't know if career goals is helpful or not, but like, yeah. What are your plans or what are you looking forward to?
Gosh, I would love. Initially, my goal with Lightweight was I want to tour colleges, and like I mentioned, I don't know that that's. I want the people who need it to find it, and I don't know that that's necessarily a college circuit tour, but I do want to tour it because I just want to keep sharing the message because the people who want it and need it will find it. That being said, it's a business and I've got bills to pay and and I don't have a producer. I produce the show myself. So I have to put down the money to rent the theater and to promote and get publicity and marketing. And I'm bringing it to New York City after the LA run to a festival. So I'll be there February through March. And again, like securing my own housing. So I am in a place right now where the show not only just needs to break even, but it needs to make money in order for me to keep doing what I love and sharing this. So I'm hoping, and my goal is to get some industry in New York because it's much more of a theater town to see the show and possibly secure a producer who might want to. It's such a low cost show. It's just me, a stool, and spoiler alert. It's not such a spoiler because it's always on Instagram. There's a puppet. But that's it.
Cuppy, right?
Cuppy the puppet. In a glorious scene of Amie completely spiraling out of control and just starts talking to this puppet, this cupcake that comes to life in the form of a puppet because I am a puppeteer. And so I try to incorporate puppetry into everything I do. It's not a puppet show, but it does culminate in this epic, love/fight with this cupcake. So it's like a will they, won't they moment. So it's a really basic, there's no set, there's nothing fancy. And that's just how I wanted it because recovery and addiction is not fancy. It really is just pared down, stripped down. And that's how I want the show to be. So it's easy to travel with it. So my hope is that after March, there's some eyes and interest and I can continue doing it. And in addition to that, puppetry is my jam. I would love to continue like any puppet work I can get. I just puppeteered for a film recently. And so that's something I really adore and love doing.
I was going to ask you about that because I did see you had a show. I saw on your IMDb you had a puppet show that you were working on.
Oh, yes. Yeah. During the pandemic. So I actually taught at Second City pre-pandemic puppetry for improvisers. And so I taught a 7-week course and that class, I continued teaching them and coaching them on Zoom during the pandemic. And then they just got so good. They don't really need me anymore. So what we started doing instead was a web series called Zooming with Puppets Amok, which is the group's name. And we just record these Zooms with the puppets and they're so ridiculous. And they make me laugh so much. And so that's been a really, really fun thing. And I do that. And and then I just got a legit film puppet gig recently, which was so much fun. And
That's awesome.
and then my other side gig that I absolutely adore is I work on Young and the Restless as I'm a waitress, but I'm the waitress in their restaurant scene called Society. And
Uh-huh.
I'm the waitress. And so it's typically just me and the 2 or 3 principals because of COVID, they don't bring in background.
Yeah.
So I work that like multiple episodes a week. And then I've
That's
actually got
awesome.
some lines. So the waitress is, she's talking now. So
She's now talking. That's really
yes.
cool. I love that. Actually, doing background on daytime soap operas, it was something that like I always like, oh, that seems like such a good gig. And I've heard that it's like a really great
It's
gig.
a great gig. It's true
Yeah.
because
So hard to get,
yes,
but when you get it, like you're in and it's
when you're
great.
in, you are in. And I had played the background waitress on Days of Our Lives for a long time. And then during the pandemic, they contracted like 3 or 4 background actors, and that was it to keep them like in a
Yeah.
COVID bubble. And I wasn't selected. But instead they gave my name to the casting at Young and the Restless, and Young and the Restless brought me in, and I'm their waitress. And so, yeah,
Oh,
once you're in, you are in, and it really is. It's so lovely. Like both soap operas, everyone's so nice, and the days are so short, and it's so easy, and just truly the cast and crew, like they could not be kinder. It feels like
that's
Second City, you
awesome.
know, that sense of home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where you're just so happy to be there, and like the
Yeah.
longest day is 4 hours, and then you get to go home and do other things. But
That's really
yeah, so
awesome.
that's my other love. I would keep doing that forever. But now that the waitress has been having some lines, I mean, I think she should just keep talking and, have her own.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she needs her own
She
storyline. That's what
absolutely
I heard.
does.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll see.
I heard the fans really are craving to
Yeah.
find out, like, what is the story behind that waitress? What's her deal?
Yeah.
Who has she been secretly, like, seeing, you
Yes.
know?
There's got to be a steamy love affair somewhere down the
I
line.
mean,
I
come
mean,
on. Yeah. All this time, she's just been in the background, but guess what? She was screwing
yeah,
that
she's been
guy.
stealing money. She's been
Yeah. She's been embezzling from the restaurant the whole
and she
time.
has 3 evil twins.
Mhm.
It's
I think that sounds good.
I would love that. I will work on that show for as long as they'll have me, but I'm like,
Oh, dude. I mean, like, I know people are like, oh, soap opera is whatever, but
oh my God.
I would love to have that gig in a
Yeah.
heartbeat. I would be on a soap opera. Dude, like you said, it's short
Oh my
days.
gosh.
You get to play and have fun and be like, so like tell these like crazy
I
stories.
know. And the
What?
actors are
That sounds
so good.
amazing.
Yeah.
I know. Well, they have to
Yeah.
be in order to like, they get through so much material in such a short time,
I
right? They
know.
have to be amazing.
I have such a newfound respect for soap opera actors because they are off book. Everything's a huge monologue. It's a lot of drama. They will cry on cue. I mean, and you will feel it. It's not just like they're using eye drops. They full blown cry on cue. If they have to do another take, they'll do it again. And then they just move on.
Gosh.
And I'm like, how did they do that? Oh my God. It's like a masterclass in acting being on that set too. So I'm really grateful for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't get enough credit.
Yeah. So, soap opera, puppet, lightweight. Those are my 3. That's my trifecta, of joy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think it's just, you just have to do what you like to do and what makes you happy, especially getting, as you get older,
Yeah.
and that those windows start to close, I feel for females above a certain age, and, you're not going to play like the ingenue anymore. And, yeah, I think I do have a bit of a youthful feel to my spirit, and I don't ever get cast as the mom, but that's what I always go out for. And so I feel like I'm in a very weird in between right now. So that's why, another reason that motivated me to create my own work. If I can play anybody on stage. I'm playing the 21-year-old version of myself, and I'm playing my mom, and I'm playing my dad, and I'm playing the therapists, and I'm playing the other, patients in the rehab center. And it's very liberating to produce and create and write for yourself, because you can do anything. No one's putting you in a box. So It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a big thing. And I've talked about this with past guests, but it is interesting how as we age and change, I think for some people they kind of grow out of their casting. I think for some of us we grow into our casting. I think that's kind of where I'm at. I think I'm growing into my casting, and I don't know, maybe my casting will be more like I don't know, the older mom or the auntie or grandma. I don't know.
You look 24.
Thank you. Well, I think that's part of my challenge is, like I'm 43 and I think I have more of that essence, but I still look kind of young. So it's like I'll go out for stuff in my late 30s or early 40s, but then every once in a while I get something where it's like 50 and I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Totally.
So I think I'm still finding my casting. And then you mentioned about like writing, and I've started some writing because I feel like, well, I don't know if people are writing that role for me. So maybe I have to do it.
Yep.
And just the fact that you put on this whole one woman show is so inspiring. And then I had Michelle Sims on last year.
I
And I know you
love
guys
Michelle.
shared a night.
Yes, we did. We shared
Yeah.
a night. It was so fun.
Yeah. And so like, I'm just so impressed by you two both, putting on your one woman show and like putting that all together. And it's very inspiring and makes me feel like I need to do that myself.
Oh, well, everyone has a story to tell. And that's just, I enjoy talking to people afterwards if they need to talk. I'm usually mentally exhausted, but I'm like, people, a lot of people need to come up to me after the show and hug it out or cry, and I love that, especially now that vaccines are in place, because it's a very a special moment, and but everyone has a story, and that's what I love about watching solo shows too. And like, oh my gosh, person you walk by on the street, you would never know. There's like every human being has a story, and I just love hearing them. So,
and I think even like with television right now, the shows that I'm most drawn to right now are those shows where they're like so specific and so personal and vulnerable. And like for me, Reservation Dogs has been so huge because it is so specific to the reservation life and sharing that culture. And it's so neat to be able to like be in that world and like to kind of get in a peek into that. And then I think, what was the other show that I was thinking of? Oh God, it just went out of my head. But there's just been like all these shows that have been on television even recently where it's so specific.
Yeah.
And it really kind of pulls you in, and you feel like you can really connect with these characters.
I love that so much.
Shrill was one. Shrill was one where it was just like very specific, and I really loved being a part of like getting to feel like you're in that story.
And what's so cool about these shows that are so specific is that they're still finding a massive audience and commercial success, which is awesome, because with Reservation Dogs, I've only actually seen one episode. Ithamar loves the show, and I need to keep watching it. I love everything that Taika
Waititi.
Yeah, I love his work.
Oh my gosh,
he can do no wrong.
A part of one of his stories.
Oh my gosh,
amazing.
Honestly, he's incredible. And it's Reservation Dogs is so specific, but you don't have to relate to growing up on a reservation or be Native
you
American,
don't have to be
or indigenous, and but because like there's always a universal theme, right? Like family is usually the universal theme, like cultural stuff, like the cultural traditions in your family, the traditional grandparents versus the more modern kids, and just coming of age, like relationships, like Shrill, you've but I love that you can have a really niche, very specific theme, but it can still find a very universal audience. You don't have to relate specifically, but there's always those nice universal themes that you can really tap into. I love that.
Yeah. It just made me even think Derby Girls is another one. I don't know if you've watched that on Netflix. Derby
I
Girls is
haven't.
I, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but believe it's Northern Ireland, and it's very specific to this town.
Oh,
Derby Girls?
Dairy
No,
Girls.
Dairy
Dairy
Girls.
Girls.
Why am I
Yes,
saying
yes.
See,
I
I
was
told you my
like,
brain is not
ooh, like a
working.
roller derby. I'm like, that sounds good. Dairy
Oh
Girls.
my gosh,
I
that is a
love the show.
classic. That's a classic Lisa moment. Oh my
That's all
gosh.
right. I
My
know.
friends who are listening to this, my family are just laughing their butts off at me.
Dairy Girls. Yep.
Dairy Girls.
I do need I need the captions for Dairy Girls because I'm like, that is some thick Northern Ireland accent.
It's so
but
But that's another
so
that's another
funny.
show. It's just so specific, but it's so good.
It's so great, especially because it's like takes place in the 90s, but and then Northern Ireland. And yes, it's just about like coming of age and like families and boy crushes, and it's so good.
Yeah.
God, that show makes me laugh so much. It's so good.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Well, I know we're just about out of time. So I always ask people 2 questions. Is what advice would you have for someone who's coming up in whatever their art is or this industry, or maybe looking to make their own one-person show? What advice do you have for someone doing that?
I think, I'm going to steal it from Lauren Weedman because it just transformed the way I created art, was only do it for you. Like do not make any, we all want that commercial success, right? Like we do at our hearts, probably. But you want to do what you love and live off of it, which means money. And it's very hard, like the passion versus the business side, but do not make it thinking like, oh, I think executives will love this, or, ABC will really dig this, or my family is finally going to see me for who I am. Because it ain't going to happen. If you don't put 100% authentic you into it, no one's going to be interested. You have to love it. And you have to just do it for you and nobody else. And I have performed my show for an audience of 2, and I had a blast because I love my show. And so you really have to be prepared, for anything, I guess, whether it's a roaring success or one person sees it, like as long as you love it and you enjoyed it, then you'll be successful. But just make what you want to see, not what others want to see. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I agree. Well, Ithamar said something similar to me in our podcast. I don't know if you listened to that podcast, but we were talking about the stuff that I create on Instagram, and he was like, well, are you doing it for you, or are you doing it for the likes?
It's so hard. I know.
You guys have a good mindset over there in your house. So
we work towards it. That's for sure. Yeah. It's a practice.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then the last question I always ask people is, what does making it mean to you? Maybe now versus when you're younger. What does success look like to you?
When I was younger, making it was fame. I mean, in high school, I said out loud to everyone that I was going to go to our 10-year reunion. Granted, this was in the 90s, in a stretch limousine. I was like, I'm going to be in a stretch limousine, and Rosie O'Donnell's going to interview me on her show because, it was the 90s, and those were goals. And I mean, I wanted to be famous, and I never even thought about wealth, to be honest. I wanted to walk red carpets, and I wanted fancy dresses, and I wanted like an Oscar, and I was writing Oscar speeches when I was a kid, like in the shower. I would hold my shampoo bottle and pretend it was a statue. And I wanted the glitz and the glamour. And that was going to be making it, kind of showing everybody like, look what I got, look what I did. And now, God, it's the complete opposite. Making it now is, if we're talking career, like life-wise, making it is for me just not relapsing and staying healthy in my mind and in my body. And, it's a practice every day, but it gets so much easier as time goes by. But for me, making it career-wise is doing something every day towards that creative life, whether it's, after this, I'm going to work on marketing and promotion stuff for the show. But also tomorrow I'm going to go nanny. So but if I don't do something every day, whether, it's jumping on the Zoom with the puppets or, working on the show or, getting in that waitress uniform for Young and the Restless, like that to me is making it, just doing creative stuff that I really love doing and, getting paid for it, to be honest.
Getting paid for it
is good, but you still got to do what you got to do. And I still, do some childcare here and there and, whatever you got to do. But just making it, to me, is just every day working towards, what you want, no matter your age or, physical or mental capacity. Is, obviously just pace yourself and be where you are meet yourself where you're at each day, but do something. Otherwise, life goes by really fast.
It does. It really does. And I think that's so great. Yeah. It doesn't matter what your age is. Keep creating, keep doing something to feed that spirit.
Yeah, I think with age, it's like you are exactly where you were supposed to be at this age. If I had found success, in my 20s or even early 30s, I think I would have sabotaged it completely, because I didn't think I deserved it. And now I'm in a place where, like, heck yeah, I totally deserve it, and I can say with confidence, like, I have a great show. I love my show. People love the show. And I would never have the guts to ever say those words out loud, even 5 years ago. So I think that it gets better with age, to be quite honest.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. This has been so great.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been so great to finally chat. It's been a long time coming.
I know it has. And I'm so glad that we're able to time this just before your show. So,
me too.
And so for those who can't make it to Los Angeles, you can catch Amie in New York, hopefully.
Yes.
And then who knows where you'll tour after that.
Hopefully somewhere. Somewhere. I will tour this show anywhere. I just love doing it and I love meeting new people. So bring it.
Yeah.
I'm open.
Yeah, definitely. Well, where can people follow the show and follow you?
Oh, yes. On Instagram, which is where I post the most, it's at lightweight_show. On Twitter, it's at lightweight_show. And TikTok, which my young 19-year-old really cool niece was handling that account, but now she's in college and she's busy.
Great.
But that's also at Lightweight Show. And then Facebook is also at Lightweight Show. So great. And then the website is lightweightshow.com. So
awesome. And we'll link it in the show notes, and if you follow our Instagram, of course, it'll be linked there.
Awesome. So. Thank you so much.
Amie, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I'll see you in your show soon. Thank you all for listening to this week's episode. You can follow The Lightweight Show on Instagram at lightweight_show. And on TikTok and Facebook at Lightweight Show. And if you're in Los Angeles, be sure to check out the show this week, January 12th to the 15th. There's a link in the show notes to buy tickets, or next month in New York if you're on the East Coast. If you're enjoying this show, this podcast, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at makingitafter40, the number 40, and to catch up on what I'm doing when I'm not podcasting, check out my Instagram at Lisa Rodriguez. And lastly, I just want to thank you all again for being listeners. I love doing this podcast, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you, and each download, and each subscriber, and each review and rating. So let's keep it up, and I can't wait to bring you more and more artist stories this year, and hopefully for years to come. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.